Hello and welcome to the bonus episode for Conversation Street 434.
That's correct.
Yes, I got it right. I haven't got any
so
notes
hard
in
to
front
start
of me.
these sometimes. Is it
with
bonus
numbers
podcast,
on?
bonus episode for the podcast? But it's hard.
It's so difficult, guys. I hope you appreciate how much work goes into this. So we're doing listener questions today, aren't we, Michael?
Yes, we haven't done listener questions for a few months. I thought it was time to crack
Quite
them
fun.
out again, raid the vault of listener questions. Got so many good ones there that we've got to save for another month, another session. But we've taken two that particularly took our fancy this week. And if you're listening to this as soon as it gets uploaded on the internet, it's the only podcast you got today because you got to wait a little bit longer for Street Talk. As Gemma's, as you're listening to this, let's say if you're downloading it straight away, Gemma's away on the camping trip.
Hello, I'm
isn't she?
camping.
Gemma's out camping.
Yay!
Until Sunday. So the plan at the moment, at least, is for Gemma to get back and us to watch Friday's Corrie and record the podcast on Sunday night. But if you listen to this on YouTube, then it's the other way around. This is like Tuesday now, I don't know, and Street Talk's already been out for a few days.
I'm
It's
back
a
from
confusing
camping.
thing, isn't it? It's confusing. But
I'm not confused. I'm
never
going
mind
camping,
all
that's I care
that.
about.
Never mind. That's enough rambling for now. I think
Okay, you done?
yeah.
Right,
That's the start of the podcast. Should we get onto our questions? Do you want me to read that? Shall I read out the first question?
Yes, go on, because I haven't got the questions.
Gemma
I don't
doesn't
know
have the
who
questions,
asked them.
everybody. I
You
hope
didn't
she's
give
got
me-
the answers.
You didn't give me the information about who asked them.
Well.
Tell me.
Well. We got a huge load of questions from John. That's enough to keep us going for like a year
Oh, yeah.
or so.
Thank you,
So
John.
we have picked one of those to answer this week. And this ties into... hopefully now that we've watched a bit more Coronation Street, stretching through the years, we should have a better answer for this. But he wants to know, which 5 or 6 characters from Corrie's 60 years would you choose to create the ideal bar staff team at the Rovers' return? And there are some extra bits of information that we need to know for this. There are some conditions. We need to have a landlord and or landlady. I've got both. Senior bar supervisor, a barmaid or barman, and a potman. And
Right.
he says also we can employ a social media or events manager, so we've got a whole lot that we can do.
I feel
So-
like I've got a lot of work to do now. I've got to look at CVs, I've got to look at references, I've got to be phoning people up who are probably dead to ask them to give me a reference for some of these people.
For someone else who's also dead.
Yeah.
So before we get on to that, I just wanted to talk about favourite bar staff teams that there have been over the years, especially now that you've seen some of the older teams, because we've seen the Annie Walker years on the DVDs are now completely complete, aren't they? But we've had like Annie and Jack, we've watched the whole time of, we've seen Concepta Riley, some of the earlier names, but we're also on the 80s DVDs at the moment, now coming into the classic Fred, Betty era.
Yes, now I have big gaps. I still have big gaps.
You do. You've got a good 15, 20 years odd that you haven't seen. But
Yeah.
I know that before now you were a real big Liz McDonald
Yeah,
sort of
Liz,
supporter,
Liz
weren't you?
and
As your
Steve are
landlady.
my favourites on yeah.
How have you been finding the 60s, 70s, early 80s teams?
Oh gosh. Well, I absolutely love Annie Walker and Bette Lynch.
I know.
It's crazy because before I remember I watched Corrie when Bette came back, yeah?
Yeah.
And I didn't know very much about her character, except to say that everyone said she was iconic and she was very much one of the faces of Coronation Street, and her leopard print outfits were iconic.
Mm-hmm.
And she turned up, as everybody knows, everyone knows the story, she turns up with great fanfare and didn't really manage to make much of a splash other than to kind of, I don't know, rewrite history a little bit and make Bette not a great character anymore, because Julie Goodyear was from a different era in Coronation Street where they did things very, very differently.
Yeah.
She wasn't prepared for the change of pace. And I guess also because she's so iconic, she probably thought they might bend the rules a little bit for her, and I don't think they were going to.
Yeah.
So she was a bit of a disappointment actually on her return. So my memories of Bette Lynch previously to watching the old episodes are of somebody who was a bit overhyped. But watching her from her very beginnings in the show to where she is now, my God, she really does deserve all of the praise for being such a legendary character.
And you've only seen her as a barmaid so
Yes,
far, haven't
I
you?
have
You've not seen her
seen
take
her
up
as a
the landlady
landlady
mantle. That's
No.
still a couple of years away.
So actually, although I've been watching Coronation Street from the 60, from 1960, now we're on 1984. So
3 at the moment.
So I've been watching 23 years of classic vintage Corrie, and I've watched it from 2001 or whenever I started watching it.
Yeah.
Watching the classic vintage episodes has only still given me one landlord and one landlady extra to my repertoire, because Annie has only just left in the 1980s episodes, and so I've only really had an extra Johnny and Walker, Annie and Jack.
But what do you think about like the team, the makeup? Because I am absolutely loving it at the moment, as I thought I would, or as I knew I would, because I'd seen bits of it before. The team of Annie, yes, she's gone there, but only just Betty and Fred. I think they are really. They're my favourite. Fantastic chemistry together.
They're my favourite team. I didn't want to be boring and just say them, because.
Well, I know I've had to, when I'm looking at who'd be your ideal team, I'd be hard pressed to think of anyone that I really, really wanted, other than the people who were there in the early 80s.
They were so fantastic, because you had Annie, who was so imperious but also very sort of snowflakey in her own way, and very, very vulnerable and relying on other people to do the work, and saying that she did all the work but not actually doing anything. And then you got Fred, who was genuinely lazy and tried to get out of stuff all the time, and he was like the dog's body, he always got picked on. And then you had two really strong female like stereotypes. You've got the sort of stoic older matriarch in Betty, and then the sort of a feisty kind of young man killer in Bet. And
she's the one that's most. I mean, everybody is down on Fred, really, but she takes the lead.
She's like at war with everybody in the pub in a really non-confrontational way, though.
Yeah.
Like she'll rip everyone to pieces as much as she can. She's like a piranha fish. Like in that, it's totally instinctual and not at all personal. She just will attack if she smells blood.
And then flash those pearly whites, because it's all just a joke.
And really. The thing is that nobody holds a grudge, and that's kind of what I really like about it. It's like a barely functioning family, isn't it?
We've had a couple of instances, or at least one of Betty doing her trademark I'm quitting, never coming back again.
Oh yeah, she was big girl's blouse.
They're such a fantastic team, and we've had since then, sort of in modern times, some good Rovers teams. I mean, something that stood out fairly recently to me is when we had Leanne, Toya and Eva, and I'm not saying that
they didn't have official roles, did they? But no, they were fantastic. Those there,
as the big three for the customers were brilliant. But at the moment, we don't appear to have a Rovers team, do we? It doesn't feel like there is one now. We've got Johnny and Jenny as the landlord and landlady, who I think could work well together, but we barely ever see them together. And then there's just been a parade of lesser names and people who've been barmaids briefly on and off for ages now. Like, who else works at the Rovers at the moment? Ryan does, but we don't really see him doing anything. It's like, I can't even think. Gemma was working there for a bit, but she's not an iconic bar lady. Sarah Louise worked behind the Rovers for a bit, but you wouldn't know.
It's completely lost focus. The Rovers has completely lost focus in the show, probably since Toya and Peter took over. Maybe even before. Before that.
Before then was the Prices, and you had a family unit together, and because it was Stuart Blackburn, wasn't it, brought the Prices in. I think what happened wanted to make them big, so we saw more of them.
I think the Prices indicated a period of time in which Corrie producers mistook the position of the Rovers as an automatic promotion for a character. They thought that if you put a character in the role as the landlady or landlord of the Rovers, it automatically made them good. And that's not how the Rovers is operated ever. You have to earn your place. We've said this many, many times before, but there have been a number of failed experiments behind the bar at the Rovers. And with coronavirus going on now and nobody going to the Rovers, it's just a bit of a ghost town, isn't it, in there?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a sad period for the Rovers.
So I guess with answering John's question today, which we obviously will get on to soon, it's like post-corona relaunch of the Rovers. Who are we going to trawl the depths? Who are we going to find, trawling the depths of Corrie history to replace in there and have as our grand reopening team? And sorry, we may need to kick some of the current staff out for that, if not all of them.
Well, I mean, I'm perfectly happy for the staff that are in there. I just think they need more focus. The trouble with Coronation Street is it's gone a bit kaleidoscopy, hasn't it? There's so many different fractured bits and you can't focus on any one part. It's just like a sort of a cornucopia of colours dancing in front of your eyes, but you're not there's no picture. You need to focus on something very specific, and they've tried to modernise it by putting bars and restaurants in, but really we need to strip it back.
Buckle down and
really,
focus
honestly,
on getting a proper team together at the Rovers with the right kind of chemistry, with the relationships. Because I think it's
fine as it is, Michael. It's fine as it is. They just need to. I've said this before about not having the courage of your convictions, and Coronation Street lacks that sometimes. At least you say what you like about Kate Oates and Pat Phelan, but at least she had the courage of her convictions to say, I'm going to go all in on this, and this is the focus of my reign as a producer. And she did. She nailed that. She made that her kind of, and bringing back the Barlows. I want to know. Really, honestly, I think that when producers come into the show, they need to give you a mission statement of what they're going to achieve. I'm sure they do, but I'd like to know what it is, because at the moment I'm not sure.
Classic Corrie comedy, says Ian McLeod. More Gemma.
I say
Gemma all the time.
I say ...
Although he did take Gemma out of the Rovers, doesn't he? So how
that was a mistake.
How easy have you been able to find putting together your Rovers team?
Well, I've been a bit sneaky.
So have I.
How have you been sneaky?
I've been sneaky in that I've got 3 teams.
Yeah.
And within each team, I've also got a few options.
Oh, I've just been sneaky in that I've done 1, 2, 3. I've done four ideas.
Okay.
I've got.
And are there any repeats through those?
No, I tried not to repeat.
Okay. Well, I first off wanted to make one that was made up of actual Rovers, names from the past.
Yeah.
Like if I could bring back any old Rovers barmaids, landlords, landladies, potmen, whatever, who would be my ideal ones to make up a team?
And were you thinking of this is the best landlord, or were you thinking of this is the best team? All right, go on, tell me.
I don't know.
What's your existing staff only?
For landlady, I've gone Bet.
Okay, see, I feel disadvantaged because
You've not seen her as.
No,
I'm
sure she's great.
She was, and there's no particular reason why I wouldn't want to put Annie Walker there, because she was also fantastic. But if I put for my landlord, I've either got Alec or Fred, and again, but it's just saying Bet and Alec, that's going back to they were a couple together, why not? So I put Fred in there as a maybe Bet and Fred could play off each other well, but I don't think that Fred or Annie would work together well. I think he'd drive her at the wall too much.
So who have you got?
I've got Bet, and then with either Alec or Fred. I think
Fred who?
Fred Elliott.
Right.
Because he was the landlord at one point, wasn't he? Sorry, yeah, because there's been a couple of Freds.
So you're having landlords and landlady?
I am.
Okay, I'm just having one person.
Oh no, that's okay. So I've got them at the top. And then for senior bar supervisor, I assume that's just like head barmaid or head barman, I took it to mean. So again, for no particular, I've got 3 options for this, and it's really, really difficult to choose between them. I'm totally cheated on this. Maybe I'll make the decision as we go there. But Liz feels like she earns a place as senior bar supervisor.
Well, we just need to look at the stamps then if you're going to go like this. But
she's been on it. She's worked behind the Rovers so long. She's got that. She's got that presence that I think somebody needs. She can boss people around certainly, but then equally. So could Shelley, I think, who I think sometimes gets forgotten about. She was in charge of the Rovers for quite a while. I think that she's bolshy enough, she's strong enough to.
I know, I do love how bolshy
put her stamp and boss the rest of the staff around, make them toe the line. But then equally, Becky as well could have quite a good shot at it. She's a really strong character. I don't know whether she's she's got her weaknesses. She's got her Achilles heels. Maybe the snifter of drugs, or maybe if she drinks too much, maybe she's not good enough at
Was
organising
it like
people around.
having an alcoholic be in charge, like when Peter was landlord?
Yeah, but then also I could think, well, Becky's been overworking in Barbados. She's been running a bar over there, so maybe the Becky who has been in Barbados and has had more of a chance to run a place, that could be quite fun. So, honestly, it probably should be Liz. Liz feels like she's more qualified, but I'd be perfectly happy with either of those. As for I've got one barmaid. Have you just got one barmaid on your list?
I've just put one person for each of these.
Yeah. Okay, it's got to be Raquel, because she's been my favourite. I've got Raquel and Eva as options.
Ooh.
I don't think either of those would necessarily be the best choice for senior bar supervisor.
Tell you what though, I would have loved to have seen them go head to head. They would have been I bet they'd start out being absolutely furious enemies and then grow to love one another.
I can see it being a bit of a Raquel Tanya Pooley sort of relationship, with Eva in the Tanya role, because she can be a bit of a cow. No. I don't think that they'd quite be good enough to boss people around, especially Raquel, although maybe post aromatherapy course Raquel when she was a bit more self-confident, I don't know, but to me the barmaid just needs to stand there and look pretty, really, woo the punters in, and I think either of those would be the best job. I'd obviously be most happy to see Raquel back out of those two, but Potman, Jack, or Kieran, if anyone else. I'm again trying not to just go for the 80s 90s sort of team. Jack Duckworth. Yeah, he's plenty of experience. I think that he also before he becomes landlord is a bit like Fred, in that the other bar staff look down on him and he's the butt of their jokes a little bit. So I think we could get that kind of dynamic back again. For the events, I've just said anyone that's left from the above, really. If I'm going to go for Raquel as barmaid, then maybe Eva could be a good events or social media organiser, because I think she's got her finger on the pulse. I also put a cleaner in as well. I've just said Hilda. So
not Gail then.
No,
Gail's good at cleaning.
You could just say, take from mine, Bet, Alec, Liz, Raquel, Jack, Hilda, but that's basically almost was a team. So I've got a few options to choose from there. So I haven't quite settled on it. Really difficult. I know I've totally cheated with that, but that's my first set. Who have you got?
Well, I've done existing bar staff only, and I have decided that I would want Jack Walker to be the landlord.
Oh,
because I really, really love and miss Jack Walker. He was so calming and soothing, and he worked so well with Annie, and it is a testament to the character of Annie Walker that she managed to last so long without Jack. Even though really clearly they were set up as a double act.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether Jack works without Annie, but when he was alive, he was the landlord and she was just the wife, wasn't she? And then she had to become the landlady.
It did kind of feel that he wore the trousers and he ran the place, even though but he liked to let her think that she did.
Yeah, he was like a quiet power behind the throne almost in the Rovers, but I just so much miss him. He was such a wonderful character, and I think it'd be nice, because we don't very often get the men as the focus behind the bar, or being don't. It is a female dominated role, isn't it?
So you're going for him partly because you miss him, but also just give him a chance to run it by himself and see
what he's like. I don't know if it'd work. I don't know where Annie is.
Does he become more assertive without Annie?
Don't know. I've got senior bar manager. I've got Betty, just because I can't imagine anybody else wrangling the barmaid.
I mean, I didn't even mention Betty, but again, it's partly just trying to avoid being being cliched.
I don't know how much the overlap was between Jack and Betty. There wasn't a great amount.
Walker and Betty, there wasn't.
So that's one of the reasons. And for barmaid, I've put Raquel just for, because she is such. I think if you are to say to somebody, what's a Corrie barmaid, I think Raquel comes to mind.
Yeah.
Because she is a stereotype, really. but played so well.
Yeah,
obviously,
or Bet,
with
I
a bit more
suppose. It
depth.
depends whether
Yeah,
in
I
your
didn't
head
put-
Bet is the barmaid or the landlady.
Well, I didn't put Bet in at all. I've got Potman Fred G. Just because I
just 'cause
really
you-
like
for
G.
your
Fred.
newfound appreciation of him.
Fred G's one of my favourite characters. He's like the Eeyore of Coronation Street. And I don't have a social media and events manager because there wasn't such a thing.
Who did you say has you seen above? Betty, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
I
I've got
think
Jack,
without
Betty, Raquel and Fred.
I think without Betty there, Fred would probably.
Run amok.
Yeah, he would, and
I think he'd probably
be a
get-
bit touchy feely with Raquel.
I was going to
wouldn't
say, he would end up, if this was set now, Fred G would be a sex offender.
I think you're right.
You
Such a
can't-
lovable one though, back in the
What a
80s and
scamp.
70s, wasn't it?
Yeah, there was like that bit where he decides to go to take Bet off. This just goes to show you how many years, decades, how long of a woman's life is spent trying to avoid, in the nicest possible way,
Unwelcome
sexual
attention,
assault
yeah.
from men. In that, the episode where the rover ends up in the pond, which is the episode where Fred, Bet and Betty all go off together. The only reason Betty was invited along is because Bet knew that Fred was going to try and molest her.
Yeah, basically.
And he was trying to-
He's been trying
Yeah.
to have his way with Bet quite a bit, hasn't he? But she's too smart for him, and I don't think.
And it's really
Raquel would
difficult.
be.
It's really difficult to bring your modern day ideas of what's acceptable to these situations. But he is kind of rapey.
Yeah, just a bit.
Just a bit, but Betty will
Betty will sort him out.
wrap him over the knuckles, won't
Yeah,
she?
I know I didn't even ask you about Cleaner, but would you?
No, I haven't put Clean down.
Can you think of anyone?
No.
I mean, we haven't got many to choose from. To
There
be
really
honest,
aren't. There's hardly any.
I mean, it's okay, so you can't really live up to Hilda, can you? Anna Windass was Cleaner for a while, wasn't she?
Nope.
And,
I
guess
also.
probably Girl, like you said.
I mean, I love Concepta Riley, but she is very much a product of her era. I don't think that she would work. She was just a nice person.
Yeah.
There's nothing really more to say about her, unfortunately.
Okay, so I've got my second bunch of characters, which are characters who've never worked at the Rovers before. Would I think they'd make a good addition to the staff? And again, I've got loads to choose from. So landlord, I was looking for characters that I think would have a presence, a big booming but welcoming presence, yet could still have a stern hand over the bar
Can I
staff.
just check? Are these characters that are current characters or any
No,
from any period?
any era. So
I just want to say, I've said this before on the show, I genuinely think that the way that AI is going and spoofing people's faces and deep fakes is going to be possible in the future if there are any eccentric millionaires listening to this.
what, in 50 years' time?
50 years time what?
Well, if they're listening, I thought you were saying if they're listening in 50 years' time, please take these ideas and
No,
deep
it's not
fake
going to be
them.
50 years. It's going to be in very little time, much less than you think. It will be possible for us, like on the front of the Coronation Street magazines from the 90s, there are these little cards called Fantasy Corrie, which is like, what if like Elsie and Len got married? And then it sort of writes down a little scenario about what the storyline would be if they had actually got together. It will be entirely possible to use actors and then just map the faces of Coronation Street characters from any era onto these actors and make whatever scenario that you want to make for Coronation Street. So all of these ideas, they sound like, yeah, that could never happen. Wouldn't it be funny if? But actually, if you had enough money and time, you
I
could
look forward
make
to that,
this. You could make this into a TV show. And I just think Jeff Bezos is wasting his time if he's not doing this.
Okay, so as I was saying about my landlord, I've gone Alf as a possibility. Archie Shuttleworth, I would think he'd be a lovely
He'd be
landlord.
lovely. He'd be kind of Jackish.
That's what I was thinking,
Yeah.
Jack Walker-ish. He's got the clout, but he's warm, he's funny, he's welcoming. I think that would be
Bit
fantastic.
relaxed, isn't he?
I would absolutely love to see what would happen if Pat Phelan was made landlord of the Rovers Return as well. I think he's got the
I love
right
it.
personality for it. I do.
Oh my god, but he would also be up to something nefarious in the basement.
Yeah, nefariousness in the Rovers. I would love it.
We
we
don't
probably
very
mentioned
often
it at
have
the time.
this, do we? It's normally quite wholesome in there.
Yeah. So just for for a try, what would it be like if there was a villain at the helm of the Rovers. And I think
Kate
even at the
Oates
time
would have been
when-
lynched if she tried.
we probably mentioned it when Pat and Eileen were together. Like, what if they were put together? That would be glorious. But for long term, I think that Alpha or Archie. But obviously, we're all dead at the moment, so.
Well,
Can't
like
have
I
any
said,
of those
computer
for now.
generated.
Landlady, I think that Elsie would do a good job. She's glamorous.
I don't understand
She's-
why you're selecting landlord and landlady as if
As a
they're
couple, I'm gonna pair
entirely
them up.
divorced from one another.
I'm going to pair them up.
But
Re-
you're
Rita, I think, would be interesting as the big boss lady behind the bar. She's already lorded it over the cabin for however many years, 50 years. So it's about time maybe she was given something else to try.
so
her
you're
hand
talking
at.
about current Rita.
No, maybe I'd knock 10, 15 years off her and see if she could do it. I'm not
So,
sure
like,
whether she'd
not
be able to quite run it
Early
at the moment.
2000s Rita.
Yeah, 90s, 2000s Rita maybe
Right.
in charge of the Rovers.
So still, she's still a kind of matriarchal figure.
Yeah, Elsie and Rita both similar.
So
in that sense.
older Elsie, like middle-aged Rita.
Yeah, I reckon so. Senior bar supervisor. I don't even know why I've said some of these. Maybe I didn't have any good ideas for this. Said Alma maybe. Karen. I was surprised to see that Karen never worked at the Rovers, so I put her right in there.
You've totally cheated on this
No, I
because he
haven't.
asked you to put together teams, and you've just gone. These are the people I'd like to do these jobs.
Well, maybe I'll put a team together.
yeah, put a
when I've
bloody
got-
team together.
Maggie Clegg possibly.
Look, you stop because I've got teams. Can I
But
tell
it's
you my
too
team?
hard.
Right, this is my classic team. Okay,
Yeah.
these are characters that have never been behind the bar, who are from classic Corrie.
Okay,
Elsie Tanner is landlady,
I like that. I'll
right?
go for
From like the 60s.
it. Yeah.
And then Rita, same era, okay? Because there's a bit of friction there between
Yeah.
those two. I think that'd be really fun if Rita was forced to be subservient to Elsie.
That would be quite good.
And then to add an extra little bit of spice to this, Dennis is the barman.
Oh, yes.
Because Dennis was amazing and lovely, but also he dated Rita. And Elsie didn't like that, did she? Because they're a similar age to one another.
So you're going for young Dennis.
Yes.
Okay.
Young sexy Dennis in his little
Tight
shorts.
Yeah.
And I don't know where Horace the horse is in this, but perhaps he pulls the carts for the
Yeah.
beer. Len is the potman
Okay.
because he's a burly dude, and I think he'd be able to sling the barrels around. And finally, for my social media / events manager, I've got Lucille because I think she'd be amazing.
Oh, she's with it, yeah.
She'd have go-go dancers on that bar every night of the week. And
Okay.
Elsie wouldn't mind because, she's a good time gal from back in the day.
Right, in that case then, I'm gonna just try this experiment and
Go
put Phelan there.
Right, Phelan's the bar.
Phelan's the bar
Landlord.
the landlord with Elsie as his landlady. They are married,
married,
up
are
together. We know that Elsie hasn't had the best luck
with men.
has she?
And it's
So,
no sign of that ending with Pat as her
yeah,
spouse.
I think there would be sparks between them, both
yeah.
fiery. My senior bar
Oh, yeah, that'd be
supervisor then.
amazing.
I'll go with Alma. I'll give it to her. She's been in charge of the cafe for a long time. She knows
So
how
what
to
would she make of
control
those
her
two
staff.
as her bosses? I don't think she'd like them.
I don't think she'd like them. But I
Alma's
think she'd,
never struck me as a woman who likes to be told what to do.
No, so there'd be friction. It'd be great TV. Barmaid. Oh, man, I've got 3 great choices here. I'm gonna
Come
go.
on, get off the pot.
Okay, and my 3 choices, the person who I'd most like to see as being a barmaid is Rosie Webster.
With Elsie as her boss. What are you wearing, madam?
I just think that as the buxom,
Can you imagine?
alluring.
I tell you what, it's my first official
Bimbo.
day back at work off of furlough today, and I'm not going to be furloughed again unless something terrible happens. Fingers crossed. So now I don't have any more spare time in my life, but if I did, I would like to imagine writing the script for an episode of Coronation Street where these were the characters behind the bar and the Rovers. Wouldn't that be fun?
That would be great fun. Runners up, Steph and Maxine.
Do you envisage this being set in the current day,
Whenever.
in times past?
Whenever.
You don't care.
I don't care. Potman. Eddie Yates.
Oh, I love Eddie Yates as the pot man.
Yeah.
Isn't he lovely?
Yeah, friendly. He's
Amiable.
yeah, I mean, yes,
Slightly lazy.
maybe a bit work shy, but
Yeah.
again, you'd need that. It'd mean that Elsie would be there cracking the whip
You have
with
to
him.
have a bit of conflict.
And Alma, I guess. Yeah, the lovable side to the Rovers team. Events manager, I've gone with Dennis. Because he was the talent scout, wasn't he?
He was,
he was
yeah.
involved in show business, but not on stage.
No,
so I
he
think
wanted to be
he'd
it.
have his contacts. I
Yeah.
think he'd be great, and I reckon that if he were, I'm thinking of young Dennis here. I'm thinking of '60s Dennis.
Yeah.
He'd be all over social
Classic.
media these days, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he'd be the person who had 5 different accounts and liked and retweeted himself,
Yeah,
pretending
I
he
agree.
was.
And as I've gone for cleaner as well, I've put in Evelyn. Because I think having a gossipy and she
what would she think of
she'd
Elsie?
think that she was in charge. She'd be at the
she would.
bottom,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
she'd think that she was running the place.
Well, you know how they say, what is it, the totem pole?
Yeah.
What's that phrase?
Linchpin?
No.
I don't know. What's it mean?
Well, totem poles, apparently, the one who's at the bottom is actually the most important. Everyone thinks it's the one at the top.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah, so she would be the little spider, and she'd have her fingers in every pie and everything,
She'd be like-
maybe she'd be the one that would eventually rumble Phelan's wrongdoings as landlord, whatever they are.
I mean,
But I
I do
think
love
she
Evelyn,
likes-
but
she
I
likes
can't
the
see
gossip.
her uncovering a murder.
Oh, I can. I
That's
totally
too
can.
serious a thing for that character, in my
So
opinion.
okay, so that's my characters who've never worked on a Rovers team. What other teams you got? Because I've only got one more set after this.
Okay, I've got a classic, modern characters who haven't ever been behind
Mm-hmm.
the bar. My set are landlady. I've got Claudia
Yeah,
because I think she'd be so much
I would
fun.
love to see Claudia.
She'd be kind of Annie Walkerish in that she would be completely like, I'm going to tell you what to do, but I'm not going to do any of it. I'm the boss.
Yeah.
You're the minions, and
She
you do what I
would.
tell
She
you.
would bring that touch of class to the Rovers if she was in charge.
Definitely. There'd be a bit of velvet curtains
Yeah.
and sashes
I
going.
mean, I think honestly, if things had gone a bit differently in the past couple of years, I wouldn't have been surprised to see Claudia take charge there.
Nope. Senior bar manager, I've put down Nick because he had a big long run at the bistro. And I think he's good at managing people in a hospitality setting.
True.
But I also love how he has absolutely no customer service skills whatsoever. He would not be able to cope with being in a customer facing. You know what I mean? Although he was at the bistro, I don't think he ever was very good
No.
at interacting with people.
Yeah, so he'd be the one sort of cracking the whip.
But he would
for
also
the
be
landlady.
like totally aghast at some of the weird. I don't think he's really good at like human interactions. I think he'd just be like, "Why are you
Brain
mad at
injury,
each
bless
other?"
him.
I know he is. Barmaid, I've put Mary because I think it
Buxom
would be
wench.
quite funny if she was the barmaid, perhaps just for an episode or two, because I think she would get too distracted by telling stories.
I can
about...
imagine seeing her there, yeah, behind the bar with a rag in one hand, and cleaning the pots, just telling everybody who
like
tries to
when
get to
Mother, the last time Mother had brandy,
Yeah.
went straight through her. Craig is the pot man.
Yeah.
Because I think he's a cheerful lad. He's a big burly man. He can
Wants to help.
Yeah, he's very helpful.
He's not so burly anymore.
He's strong.
Yeah.
And then finally, social media / events manager. I've put Gemma because if we're gonna make her a focal point of the show, she needs to be playing to her strengths, which is sort of being cheerful and oblivious.
Yeah.
And I think you have to be slightly a bit like that to be involved in trying to organise events, because you have to not take knockbacks personally. Like if you organise your special cocktail Uber Duber night and nobody turns up, you can't take it personally. I don't think Gemma would.
Yeah. No, that's a good idea. My third set is a just for fun set, but it was be what if the Rovers was run by a bunch of poshos, because Annie Walker was the original landlady and she ruled the roost there for 24 years that we saw on screen, 23 years on screen. What if everybody who worked behind the Rovers was, of her
Well,
calibre?
out of touch.
Yeah, so I've got her there as landlady, with married to Lewis Archer as the landlord.
I can't imagine.
Together
I don't imagine. There's no way.
spiffy.
There's no way because she would see right through him, and he would have no use for Annie Walker whatsoever.
Doesn't matter. I've got senior bar supervisor Lillian Spencer, who was the Maureen Lipman character that came in after Julie Goodyear's brief return.
Yeah.
And she was basically a new Annie Walker. She was supposed to be. She was. Getting Maureen Lipman in a different role.
Okay.
But I've put, because she was like a temporary landlady or something. I can't remember her role, but I've got her there as senior bar supervisor. Give her a position of power there underneath Annie Walker. I think they'd all just butt heads terribly, but I don't care.
Oh, great.
I've got Claudia as the barmaid.
Barmaid Claudia.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
Okay.
Pot man Henry.
Right. Okay,
see,
and
I
he
can see that working.
wouldn't even know what the first thing about what to do with a barrel.
That would provide the comedy hijinks. He wouldn't have a clue what he was doing.
Even though he's like third generation in a brewery family.
But making up his cocktails on the side.
Yeah.
Maybe brewing them in the basement when nobody's looking. And for
you
events,
don't brew cocktails, Danny.
Events manager, I've got for my final posho, post aromatherapy Raquel. So I couldn't think of any other really proper posh characters. And I think that when she came back from her course and she was assertive, she knew what was what. I think she'd have her finger on the pulse and she'd be scheduling meetings and
So, post aromatherapy Raquel is kind of proto Happy Valley Raquel.
So that's my posho team that would not work at all together, but
it would be really funny to do.
Might work as a parallel universe fantasy spin-off sort of way.
It would be really funny to do a Rovers bar staff team made of characters who are played by the same actors but in different shows.
Yeah.
Like Saran Jones is the TARDIS, but she's the pot man. And she just beams beer into your glasses using her magic powers.
Maybe setting up a Rovers bar staff team of characters that are played by the same actor in Coronation Street. I don't know.
I don't think there's
which
very
actor
many.
has got the most.
Jane
characters under
Hazelgrove
their
as a child.
belt. Yeah.
Now she's the social events manager.
Yeah, with Evelyn and Lillian Spencer together. Anyway, so
right, hang on.
Have you still got
I've
one
got
left?
one more. My final one is called Chaos Reigns, and it's kind of
that sounds
similar
good. I
to
like
yours,
it already.
because Henry is the landlord,
Yes.
and I've put landlady for both him and Jack.
He's earned that. It's a hereditary position.
It is. It's like being the monarch. It doesn't matter if you're qualified; you're next in line, so therefore it's your turn.
Mm-hmm.
I've got senior bar manager. I've got Gemma because he would definitely hire her because he would probably hire her on the basis of the fact that she's the only person he knows who works in a pub or has worked in a pub.
Yeah.
But of course she wouldn't know what the hell she was doing. She'd schedule people at the wrong times.
There'd be real. There'd be opportunity rife for
misunderstandings, confusion.
No, I'm thinking of like affairs. Boss
Nobody
and
would
worker.
Nobody would get paid on time. Barmaid. I've put Moira.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be fabulous if Henry was the landlord and Moira was the barmaid? Because she would be torn between trying to seduce him or holding him in utter contempt and gossiping about him.
She'd have to try very hard to seduce him.
No, just a few ooba-doobas down his neck and he'd be anyone's. I've got the pot man as Brian because he's the silliest man I can think of who would be free to be a pot man. I mean, Dev is kind of along the same lines, but I think Dev's a bit too...
I like Brian
management.
as the bumbling oaf.
Yeah.
Wouldn't
rolling
be able
barrels
to do
around.
his job, yeah.
And finally, for social media and events managers, I think I've got a job share with Mary and Aggie. Because I think Aggie would be like...
Where did Aggie come from?
Well, Aggie would be like, do you know what we should definitely have? And that is a Jamaican night, but with haggis.
Oh, because of the...
Or like-
yeah, I get it. The
we're gonna do
crazy
baked
recipe
beans,
baggy.
but it's gonna be with cinnamon baked bean night.
And Mary, she was all the theme night person.
Yes.
I'd forgotten when she did all the theme nights at the bistro.
See?
Yeah,
So there you go.
good callback.
Thanks.
Lovely. Well, we've got a lot of good teams there, and
Well, take your pick.
exactly.
Elon Musk.
Right. Do you want to read out the next question and who this is from?
This is from Ben Price Fan Club, who wants to know which classic Coronation Street characters are most similar to modern day characters. And this, I think, is a really good question and something that people do subconsciously a lot of the time, don't they? Or they'll say, "Oh, so and so's a new Annie," or "Do you think do you think's the new Bat?" And
Sometimes it's a criticism as well, isn't
Yeah.
it? You say, "Oh, so and so's just trying to be the new whoever," or I mean,
she's
there's
no blah blah.
recent memory. Evelyn has had to fight
Yeah.
very hard to
Overcome people.
the
So
Blanche
she's Blanche.
comparisons, and I think that they're still there because Blanche was such a beloved character. But to me, they do feel like quite different people.
Oh yeah. I don't think you can very easily say that anybody is the new anybody else.
I found it very difficult, actually, pairing people up from past and present.
You
Because
have to be a bit loosey-goosey with it.
yeah, so I've kind of gone that way. Like, how close do they need to be able to say this is the such and such version of that?
Well, I mean, the question is, who was most similar to whom? So there's a bit of leeway
Yeah. I mean, do you think it's good to have characters that
there. No.
make you think of other
No,
ones?
not really.
Or why?
No. Well, because I think an actor has a lot to do with how a character acts. How a character is formed. We've seen so many times when an actor gets cast in a role, the character starts off almost completely as conceived by the writing team, but then morphs into something different when the actor's natural abilities and personality, not necessarily their own personality, but their personality of how they act things, comes through.
Yeah.
So people change. Like when Evelyn first came in, as a good example, she was very, very nasty and a bit petty and small-minded. And I think that when they saw the way that she was playing the character,
Especially around Tyrone.
they tweaked it a little bit and gave her more of a softer side, which has worked really well.
Yeah. And it's interesting, she's currently trying to fight against that coming through, isn't she, with the Arthur stuff? I know we've had to put that on hold for a little bit, but her softer side is coming through there, and she's saying, no, that's not who I am. But
Yeah. I think it's not. I don't want it. I don't want to sort of sound as though I'm being down on actors and saying they can't act anything but their own personalities. But you really do bring something unique to a role. Each actor does.
I think that comparisons with earlier characters are almost always unfavourable as well.
Yeah.
It's not often that you'll say, oh, this character is just like so-and-so used
But
to be,
better.
but they're even better.
Yeah, and
You
the
don't
other
get
thing,
that, do you?
The other thing in Coronation Street in particular is it's very rooted in the time period in which it was set. You can't have anybody in the show now who is like, oh, she's the new Concepta Riley, you know? I think the characters were a product of their time, and you wouldn't really work to have somebody exactly like Annie Walker or exactly like Len Fairclough in it now.
And what I don't like is when the producers or the higher ups of the show say so and so is going to be the new such and such.
Like Tyrone and Fizz are the new Jack and Vera.
Yeah, I mean that was
Silly.
that was the magazines that made that up, I think,
Yeah.
wasn't it? But I'm thinking also, I think it was McLeod that said that they wanted the Adam and Gary to be the new Mike and Ken relation, and that was never going to work. And you were always going to say no, that they're a not as good version of them,
Yeah.
aren't you?
Yeah.
And
It doesn't work out for anybody.
it never does, because they can't live up to the idea, especially if it's a beloved character or pairing that you've got in your mind, because you've got maybe it is a bit touch of the rose tinted glasses, but yeah, somebody who you've been watching or who you watched and loved for many years, and you put on some kind of pedestal, the new characters will never live up to them in your mind, so they need to try and forge a their own
But I
personality.
think Coronation Street is very good at doing that.
They are.
You can put people into archetypes, I think, like gruff builder, saucy barmaid, man eater, ladies man. You know, you can put people into these categories, but nobody really is a carbon copy of anybody else. And I don't think current Corrie really is that invested in characters, and that's unfortunate, and that's to its detriment, because you shouldn't be able to take one person and give them someone else's script and nobody notices that they've got a completely different, they're saying someone else's words. Like back in the day, you wouldn't have been able to get away with doing that.
No.
With current Corrie, it feels a bit like the characters are in service to the plot, and that should not be the way it is.
For some characters, you could very easily just get somebody else to say it, making very minor, if any, tweaks.
Yeah.
Which is a shame. And partly, I don't know whether back in the olden days, and I might even be talking about 80s, 90s here, because the cast was so much smaller, it gave the characters more chance to breathe and flesh out a bit.
Well, there was
and
a
it
lot
feels
of
like
stories.
You can describe some of the older characters a whole lot better than you can describe some of the characters now.
Yeah, because a lot of the times the plots were so-and-so's clashing with somebody, or there's a interpersonal problem. Like, it's not really an issue storyline or anything that you can't sum it up in like you can't sum it up as a plot. You can sum it up as like a person.
Yeah, do you remember that time when so and so interacted?
Yeah, like
clashed, or
like at the moment we're watching 80s Corrie, and you've got Eddie and Marion, and they're going to leave because Marion's mum is sick. I mean, and the whole story isn't about Marion's mum is sick. The story is Marion and Eddie having to negotiate their relationship to work out where they're going to live in light of this information. And Marion's like, I'm going to go and live with my mum. I don't care what you say. Family's more important. And Eddie's like, well, I'm used to being a bachelor. I don't rely on anybody and nobody relies on me. I'm completely alien to this idea and I don't want to run off somewhere else. I've got my family and my friend, I've got my friends here and my job here.
Yeah.
And that's the conflict. You can't sum it up in a sort of like an itty-bitty kind of, a tweet or a headline on soap magazines.
No, I know what you mean. And
it's about people and how they interact with each other.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've strayed away a bit too far.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's a nice preamble to the discussion. And like I said, I did find it really, really difficult to come up with any pairs.
How did you do this? Because the way I did it was I took the classic characters, I made a list of all the classic characters I could think of, and then I sort of boiled down their characters to very small, simple concept, and then I saw who matched those characters.
I tried to do that, but I didn't.
So you didn't take modern characters and go.
No, I wrote a list
like?
of old characters, and then I said, who could I pair up with, and I really, really struggled with it, honestly.
Okay, yeah, I did a bit, but I think I was a bit ruthless in the end and just, I said, just picked
I think
two
you've probably
things.
done a better job than me at this, so I'll let you lead and I'll chip in with some of mine if I've got other characters that match.
Well, my first one, I was a bit mean out the gate because I had Elsie as my character.
Yeah.
And I loved Elsie at the very beginning. She was fabulous, but she's dwindled since she returned.
I think I've got an idea of who you might have gone for her, and I've got the same person.
I've put a siren with dwindling appeal.
Carla?
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
She was a really strong female character who has been beaten by the plot into submission.
Yeah.
Both of them have been victims of
started off as real
of their own popularity. Of the writers going, people like this character, let's give them stories. What stories should we give them?
Yeah. Elsie's got the family side, which Carla has, or she hasn't got the kids, but yeah, absolutely. She's got the personality, she's got the chutzpah, I mean, they both held important roles in the factory. Yeah, but no, I think that's a really good example.
I've got Annie. I've put and this one is controversial, okay? I wanted to spark a debate here. Okay? Now, Annie, I've boiled her down to she's formidable, she's self-obsessed, and she's overly dramatic.
Okay.
Now, who do you think sounds like that in current Corrie?
I mean, I paired her up with Sally in current Corrie.
Good one, yeah.
And I think that
yeah, she thinks too
in
highly
a
of
way,
herself.
she's almost aspiring to be the next Annie Walker, and Sally never knew Annie. Their paths
No.
just missed. But
Yeah, very, very.
get ideas
near
above
miss.
her station. And I mean, at the end of
You're absolutely
Annie
right
was
there.
just she worked in the factories, didn't she? She was or Mills or something. I can't remember before.
Becoming a landlady,
Yeah.
marrying Jack.
But then she got ideas above her station, and she always wanted to have a proper pub in.
I don't like
in the
that phrase,
countryside.
ideas above their station. It's so
Yeah,
classist.
you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. I don't
and
regret
Sally
you
always
using it.
aspires for something better, but
It
still
is so-
hasn't been able to get away from the street.
It is such a British thing, though, to say this is where you are in life and you're not going anywhere else.
I know.
I know. I'm not criticising
Annie
you.
was
I just
also
think it's
mayoress.
interesting.
Sally was mayor.
Ah,
I can see
you've done a good job there.
If-
I think.
if Sally's trajectory carries on in this direction, I could almost see her in sort of 30 years' time, say, being as
landlady.
snobby as Annie, and if she was a landlady, she could be Annie-ish.
Yeah.
So
okay.
who have you said?
Mine is very controversial, so I'll just remind you what I picked. Formidable, self-obsessed, and overly dramatic. I've picked Alia.
Wow.
Because I think when Annie was young, she might have been a bit like Alia. She's annoying, she's persistent, she's got a lot of energy. I don't think Annie does. I think that in her youth, though, she would have been very feisty and very, very stubborn-headed.
Yeah.
I think
No, that works. I just went snob, but I can see where you've got.
I just wanted to.
one.
I wanted to go a bit sideways with some of these, just to be interesting.
Yeah.
I've got Minnie Caldwell, and I've put she's batty and stubborn.
I don't think I got anyone paired up with Minnie. Who have you gone for?
Mary,
Oh yeah, that works really well actually.
because
Says these off the
she's
wall
she's
things.
also quite self-reliant, isn't she? She's a single woman who is master of her own domain, but not in a kind of in your face way, just in a sort of like, this is my little kingdom. And I don't know why Mary doesn't have cats, but she certainly should have at least one,
Yeah.
if not multiple cats. They're both eccentric and mad as a box of frogs and go their own way, and also
I think
quite
she
often
can get away with saying things as well.
yeah, quite often they're quite happy to talk to themselves. Minnie and Mary often end up in scenes talking to themselves about something weird that's happened to them.
That's a great one. I like that a lot.
I've got Dennis Tanner. I've got Cheeky with a dark streak.
Okay.
So who have you got?
I've put like Michael or Ryan as possible Dennis Tanners.
Yeah.
But both of them, both quite. Especially like Michael is the lots of the ideas man, sort of sprite and sparky.
He doesn't have a dark side, though,
He's
does
a
he, at
charmer.
all?
No, he
Not
doesn't.
that we know of at the
No,
moment.
he don't think he's been to prison. Yeah, a charmer, likes to jump on the latest craze.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And Ryan,
He's with it.
possibly similarly as well. Maybe not quite so
Ryan
much.
Ryan embodies Dennis's like
Lackadaisical.
lackadaisical kind of lazy, like low effort money making. Both of them
Yeah.
actually low effort money making schemes that go absolutely nowhere. But I've gone for a different one with this because I've gone for David. Because I think they're both sarcastic and dark. And I think that when we watched Dennis, we forgot quite a lot of the dark side of his personality. Like, he was in prison. Then when he was out of the show and he came back, he'd been homeless for a while because he'd been up to, I don't know, I can't remember what the circumstances are, but he had certainly fallen on hard times. And I can really see David going down that same path. If he lacked family support that he's got, and like the love of a good woman like Dennis didn't have that, I think that David would be a lot more of a wild card, and who knows where he would end up in the future.
I think David's
a lot darker than Dennis.
David can be prone to camping it up sometimes as well.
Exactly. He's no Jack Nicholson,
No.
Dennis Tanner, but I still think
Go on, who else?
Ray Langton. He's hot-headed and practical, and so I've put him with Kevin. I think they're both likely to fly off the handle at things. They're both I think they would describe themselves as like a normal working class lad, like down the pub with my mates, put a hard day's work in, work hard, play hard.
Yeah. I've put Ray with Adam being like a bit of a charmer, a rogue, somebody who will...
Adam's a lot more intellectual than
Yeah, I agree. Attracts the ladies.
Oh, definitely, playing away.
Wouldn't say no to an affair on the side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I reckon those two maybe, but yeah, yours idea is pretty good too.
Len Fairclough, I've got no nonsense, patriarch with a dangerous side.
Mm-hmm.
I've put him with Johnny.
Oh, I put him with Peter. But yeah,
interesting.
Johnny, I can see that totally as well.
Well, now we've seen Johnny's bit of... I wouldn't have done it before this Scott storyline, where we know that Johnny's now got a darker past than we had thought before. They're both entrepreneurs, aren't they? Because Len had the builder's yard. Yeah. They're both also quite under pressure to provide for people in a business sense.
I see Len as kind of the wise statesman dispensing worldly advice.
He's like the wise working class icon, isn't he?
Yeah, and Peter certainly thinks that he's wise as well.
Oh, God, yeah.
Let me give you some of mine. Leonard Swindley.
Oh, nice.
I kind of boiled him down to a bit of a stickler, a stick in the mud, pompous, doesn't necessarily realise, that people are making fun of him a little bit. So I've gone
Is it Norris or Roy?
No, I've gone Norris and Brian.
Oh.
For him. Not exactly the same, but I think both of them are a bit up themselves and think they know best when actually they're just a pair of pillocks, really. and I don't think that Leonard is as much of a pillock as Brian.
No, nowhere near.
But
there's something inherently
somebody who people make fun of.
There's something inherently comical about overly pompous person, even if they are absolutely within their rights to be pompous. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So go on. I'll give you another one. I've got. Let's have a look.
I didn't want to go too obvious.
I've looked for David Barlow, and I've boiled him down to decent chap, nice, touch of romance in his soul, harmless really. And I could say, well, that could be a sort of Tyrone, Ashley, Craig, Paul, but then also I've put those with Jerry Booth as well. Nice, I think likeable, fairly harmless chaps.
Pick any character who was like anybody in modern times, I've always said that Jerry Booth reminds me of Tyrone.
Yeah, he is. I think that Jerry was a bit shyer.
Yeah.
Less confrontational, whereas I think Tyrone
through circumstances has been forced to become a bit more assertive.
I still see Jerry as being more of an Ashley Peacock or Craig than Tyrone really, but yeah, okay. I've got Hilda and Evelyn, kind of bit gossipy, bit can
Hilda and Evelyn.
They can be nasty to other people behind their backs, but equally not afraid if they're sort of really feeling riled up to say it to their face.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's part of the look as well, isn't it?
Evelyn and Hilda.
Yeah, the tabard. I could see Evelyn in curlers.
I can't see Evelyn in curlers outside her house.
Maybe not outside her house. Okay, bit old school. I'm thinking, but maybe for them.
I've put Evelyn with Ina.
Yeah,
they're both bulldoggy women who absolutely everybody is terrified of a tongue lashing from, and they're judgmental and so quick to it as well.
Yeah.
And they're self-satisfied, and they really don't like. They're kind of like their own castle. Like the moats around, the drawbridges up. They're impenetrable fortresses of women, like mentally and physically.
Yeah, Ina had the religious side to her that
Yeah.
she would use to get what she wanted, or to try and
As a
hide
tool,
behind
yeah.
in a way, as a tool, exactly, which Evelyn doesn't have. But yeah, okay. Have you paired Stan up with anybody?
No, I couldn't
I've
think
gone
of
for
anybody.
Tim with Stan. I've just
Oh, no,
I've
I'm
boiled
sorry,
him
I
down
did
to
actually.
layabout.
No, I did. I put Stan with someone.
Who?
He's a work-shy an alcoholic.
Yeah.
I've put him with Eddie Windass.
Eddie Windass. Okay, I didn't. I was thinking of more modern, but yeah, I can see that.
Because they're both
yeah.
shiftless, idle.
Mumbly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that works. But I think for
I mean, Eddie's nowhere
Tim's
near
probably
as
the closest.
lovable. Perhaps
Oh,
Tim
no,
is
not at all.
on more of a par with Stan.
Yeah, and nagged by the wives
henpecked.
henpecked. That's the word. Who think that the wives both have got ideas above their station and want to be, have a better lot in life.
Yeah, okay.
And it's like, come on, just get off your ass and do something. Sort of wives. Yeah. Any other good ones you got?
Have you got any more?
I've got a few.
I mean, I've got a couple that they're not as. I mean, the worst one I've got, I think, is Raquel. Have you got Raquel?
I've put Raquel with Emma as the ditzy barmaid, but they're not.
Oh, I think
they're not
you're right.
really the same.
No, they're kind of similar. Raquel and Eva, I would say, as well, a bit more.
Yeah.
Sort of glamorous.
Yeah.
Lovable, ditzy.
Yeah, totally.
Head in the clouds.
I think that Raquel was naturally more naive than both of them. I think that Eva and Emma are both switched on more, even though...
I think you have to be.
Yeah, you have to be in these days. But I think that sometimes Emma is given lines like, oh, here's a stupid Emma line, here's a silly thing that she thinks, and it almost feels like it's a script that's been given to her.
And she doesn't think it.
And she doesn't necessarily... But Raquel was very, very believable in everything that she said, and she was very sheltered and naive.
The one I put...
And she had this wild ambition of being a model, but I don't know whether Emma's got that. I don't know what makes her tick necessarily. I don't know what she wants out of life.
Rosie's sort of similar in a way as well, in that their ambition is unfettered by the chains of realistic thinking. Like she thinks she can go to Japan and become a model because she's pretty, and there's no real reason to think that she won't succeed because she doesn't have the imagination to consider failure.
Tell you what, she's been there long enough. She must be doing something right.
She must be in charge by now. The one I had down for Raquel is the one I think that Corrie are kind of going for a bit without the glamour and the sex appeal, and that's Gemma. I think that they think that Gemma's kind of as lovable as Raquel was, in that they're both ditzy.
Think that,
yeah. And
not quite.
And you kind of want to put your arm around them and protect them, but I just don't think that Gemma's got that.
No. Gemma to me represents a different type of Corrie archetype, which we have seen quite a few of, as the urchin come good. So I'm putting Abby's in that category, Kylie Platt.
They're all very modern characters though, aren't they? There's nobody like that in classic.
Yeah, maybe not. Becky
Bette
McDonald
maybe is the best example of somebody who sort of came in as an unassuming, sort of brash, kind of wrong side of the tracks. Because the first time we ever were introduced to Bette was when she was a factory worker who came into the pub demanding pies from Annie Walker, who didn't want to serve them because she thought they were all horrible riffraff.
Yeah. Who else have I got? I've already had Brian paired up with Leonard, but I said he's a bit of a Derek as well, as a bit of a bumbling, pompous, buffoonish kind of character. There's obviously the trio of Scylla, Janice and Beth, who have been compared to each other, but all fairly modern characters, but they're not. None of them are exactly the same as each other. Especially Beth doesn't particularly fit there, but I know when she came in, that was another case of people saying, oh, she's the new such and such. And I don't know whether I can't remember whether Corrie at the time tried to fuel that and went along with it, or whether they tried to distance her, but people were saying that. Another one that I didn't write down, which was another, I think, attempt to make a new version of an old character, was Diggory Compton, the baker. I think was... This is the new Fred Elliott.
Yeah.
Corrie wanted us to believe.
Fred,
and
Archie
not a
and
chance.
Diggory are all...
Yeah, they're all cut from the same cloth, aren't they?
Big, like, puffed up chest men.
Yeah.
Big, booming, sort of hot heads.
Yeah.
The final one I've got
go on.
is Claudia, who I have said... Where have I put Claudia? Gosh. I've put her as Bet, as a sarcastic man-eater.
Yeah.
With big hair.
Yeah, bit classier than Bet, but I can
A lot
see.
classier than Bet, but certainly a woman who is content with herself and very self-confident and has been knocked down by men enough to realise that she doesn't actually need their crap in her life, but is certainly up for anything that's going to come her way, like some kind of Venus flytrap of a woman waiting for a fly to land so she can eat him alive.
Just having a look, see who else I've got. You said Gemma for somebody earlier. I've paired Gemma up with Irma as being a bit of a proper scally, but lovable and fun. And I'm going by what Coronation Street wants us to think and what she has been in the past.
She's not as clever as Irma.
No, she's not as clever. She's not as smart as her, but you know, always a smile. Oh, I know she's going through postnatal depression at the moment, but you know what I mean? I think similar sort of, and people look down on her because of her family, because of her roots.
Yeah, she's got to...
But despite, she has to fight against
prejudice.
Yeah.
Classism.
Who else have I got? When I just put Lucille with Amy or Faye, maybe, for no particular reason, they're the young...
Lucille was sort of like Gail when she was a teenager, or a teen, where they were like, we need somebody young and happening in the show. Who do we have? Who's cool and hip?
Yeah. Alan Bradley has certainly got... or Jeff has got shades of Alan Bradley, possibly, as nasty, controlling.
Or Charlie Stubbs.
Yeah, maybe, but I think that he was a bit more charming, and I think with Alan and Jeff, there wasn't a whole lot to like there. I'm interested to see when we get to him on the DVDs just how charming Alan was. He obviously, worked his magic on Rita, but when I think back on him from what little I've seen and what I've seen from the clip shows, he was just a bit of a slime ball in the same way that Jeff was. I've got I think despite her best efforts and this
Abby.
This is Abby scratching away at a scratching post. I don't know whether that's been picked up on the recorder.
Come on.
I don't think she'd thank you for saying this, but I think Gail has kind of morphed into a bit of an Ivy over the years.
I think she's a bit like a Hilda. Like, now cleaning lady.
I know, I see that, but I think she's also a bit of a mother-in-law from hell and very, very protective over her children. Clingy, can't cut the apron strings kind of thing. Yeah,
that is exactly what went on with Ivy, with Brian. She's like, oh, Brian, and she then fell in love with Nikki, didn't she? And then demanded that he take her name.
Yeah.
And then now Gail has sort of stepped into her shoes. But that's the trouble, you see, a lot of the time women clash in that relationship because they are similar to one another.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if David or Sarah Lou or Nick were to die, how that would affect Gail. Would she turn into wailing? Yeah, I mean, Ivy had the Catholicism and the beliefs that changed what she believed about Brian and everything, but
I want to see if Gail ever dies, will she become a ghost? That will be the real
that'll be the test. And finally I've got Daniel being the new Ken, passing the torch over.
Oh, yeah.
They're not exactly the same, but
yeah, that's the most obvious one. Why don't you think of that one?
Yeah, I mean, to end it, I think they cast Rob because he had the essence of Ken, as Denise said in the interview the other week. He's not exactly the same, but he's educated. He wants to get away from where he is in life, but he can't quite get there.
Yeah,
and parts of his
trapped
life
in the back streets of Weatherfield.
Yeah. Kind of looks down on some of the other people on the street, but not quite in the same way that Ken did. But I can certainly see, say, Daniel writing an article criticising everyone on Coronation Street and everybody turning against him, and other things that have happened in his life, like Sinead's death, certainly mirror what Val, Ken had to go through with Val as well. So
being left holding the baby.
Yeah, exactly.
That's probably the most obvious one.
It's an obvious one, and one that I think was purposefully done. And we started this discussion saying that when they try and do something on purpose, it doesn't really work. And you say, well, no, I'm just remembering so and so. And I wonder whether we're not getting that from Daniel and Ken, partly because Ken's still in the show, and we don't
Yes.
have rose-tinted glasses about Ken because we've still got Ken.
Good point. Very good point.
So with that, I think I'm going to have answered Ben Price Fan Club's question.
I think that is a very good question. I think though, the whole way through, they were waiting for us to say who's Nick based on, and I don't have.
I can't think of anybody who's exactly the same as Nick, I'm afraid.
I'll tell you one thing though, Alf sounds like a weird one, but Alf did have his brain damage from when he was hit. When the lorry crashed into the Rovers, he did have brain damage, and there
he
was
a businessman.
He's a businessman, and there was a bit where his wife, what's her face? Renee was scared of him. Like, just how the same way that Nick made people scared of him when he'd have these outbursts and he'd alienate people. I thought it was very interesting to watch when we saw the classic Corrie, the similarities between Alf and Nick, and we can only wait and see whether Nick will ever become the mayor of Weatherfield.
I think what you said earlier about Nick having no customer service or customer relations skills, I don't think we can apply that to Alf, because he was a lovely, friendly grocer.
He was so, amiable. Can you imagine Nick squinting at people when they came into the shop to go, have you got any spam? Going, spam? What do you want spam for?
Yeah.
Right, so that was a fun episode.
That was fun.
Thanks,
I enjoyed
Michael.
that.
Thank you for writing in the questions.
Why, thanks me. Thank you for having a lovely conversation with me.
Yeah.
But thank you especially to John and to Ben Price Fan Club for suggesting those lovely questions.
Thank you to you.
No, thank you.
Thank you for the questions. Thank you to everybody who's also
listening.
written in other questions. If you want to write any questions to us, you can at conversationstreet@gmail.com or at Twitter, Facebook.
Honestly, the best place, unless I've started a post on the Facebook group, which I do occasionally, saying, please can we ask some listener questions, emailing them in is the best way, because I'll just copy them and paste them straight into my file. If they go, if you tweet them, if you tweet them, they're likely to get lost.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So yeah, if you want us to answer a question, that's the best way to do it.
And if you've got some ideas of your own, like who would be your ideal Rovers bar team?
Yes.
And you can make it as people who've worked there, or people who never have,
I'd
or
love
fantasy,
to know
or if you've got another, I had my Poshos, Gemma had a disaster team.
This is like the fantasy football of Coronation Street fans.
Yeah. And can you think of any other links between modern
Please
and
let
old
us know
characters?
any parallels between Coronation Street characters, old and new. And that's it.
That is it. Yeah, it's definitely it. So thank you everybody for listening, and hopefully if you're listening to this on Saturday, like I said, you won't have to wait too much longer to find out what we thought on this week's Coronation Street. Sunday night I'm aiming to get that in, because Monday I'm back to school with a little kiddie wink, so I won't want to be uploading it or doing it then.
Well, there you go. On that sad note, we'll leave you.
I know. I can't wait to see them.
You bring everybody down, don't you?
Back to work. See you, everybody. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
The music for this episode came from podcastthemes.com.